Hello everyone and welcome to lesson segment B. In this video we're going to go into depth more about arts-based methods and how they're used as in data collection. We're going to go into some examples of what it can look like in research and talk a little bit more about what different arts-based methods there are. So we're going to begin by looking at visual arts-based methods that are sometimes used in research with children and youth. And here's a nice list of different techniques. So drawing and sketching, I would say, are probably used the most frequently with children and young people and used in a variety of different settings, such as educational settings, healthcare, and so on and so forth. There are different ways that researchers may use drawing as the method, and this also goes for coloring and painting. Some researchers may choose to focus on the end product of the children's drawings and use that to be coded, and others may focus on the picture and the narrative that goes with the drawing. So this may include using the drawing and then having the children talk about it after the drawing is complete, or the researchers may also have the children talk about the drawing and talk about whatever it is the research question is focused on as they are doing the drawing. So this would be usually known as a draw and talk method. So they're focusing on the process as well as the narrative that goes with the picture, and then they use the picture and both the narrative and code that. We have craft techniques, so you can have children making different things. There's also the modeling and mapping techniques, so we see this in some research where they're asking children about their neighborhoods and having them draw out a map. Or making a model of their neighborhood. It can be used in many different ways. That's just an example. There's collages and scrapbooking. So we saw the collage in the Pimlott Wilson article where they were making them, she called them mood boards, but it's kind of like a collage where they're using both pictures, and it could be words or images. It doesn't have to be drawn. They can be cut out of magazines or printed. So a combination of different things, allowing children to express themselves. And then we see here at the bottom using shapes such as clouds and speech bubbles. And this was also used in the Pimlott Wilson article when she used clouds and she used sunshines and rainbows and had the children write words and reflections within those bubbles. So they were kind of used as a prompt. So now we're going to look at an example of a study that used mask making and drawing as their method for data collection, and this was with war-affected children. So I think it's important to note that it was a sensitive topic, and this was one of the reasons why they chose to use these arts-based methods. So in this project, the researchers were interested in the experiences of a unique population of war-affected children. So by using these research methods, they aimed at addressing issues that were happening within these children's lives. The participants were children and youth who had all been deeply impacted by a war in northern Uganda. And they wanted to explore the lived realities and the conflict experiences directly from the children who were born during this wartime and experienced some very traumatic events. So it's important to always think about why you're using this method. And so they explain that the reason they chose this method was because it was a safe way to access traumatic memory and ultimately could help with recovering from the trauma. So the children were expressing difficult feelings and memories that sometimes they felt were shameful. And so providing this type of art-based methods, they were hoping at creating an environment that wasn't very stressful in a way that they could safely access this traumatic memory. So another reason they also chose to use it was because the masks hold cultural significance within that culture. And so these are the reasons why they chose to use the mask, which I think is important to point out, because the reason we choose these specific arts-based methods have to have purpose behind them. So they had the children create these masks, and the mask provided insight into the children's daily lives, both their past and their present. And so the children provided verbal explanations of their masks, and also it was a mask workshop. So they had children that were a group of children creating these masks together. And they were just, as they were creating the masks, they kind of explored the realities across time, their self-perception within the conflict and the communities and the challenges and the opportunities. that were happening in their lives. So this is an example of one of the masks that the children had made, and they spoke about the colors they used, and one of the things they said was that they used the black color around the mouth and above the mouth because they said the color represents difficulties that they started experiencing from the bush with their mother. So these children had to spend time hiding in a bush, and they had to try and escape out of the bush. So they were talking about their experience with this, and they said the black represented the problem of getting food and no place to stay. So that is why I've shaded the mouth black, because of a lack of food to eat and also other difficulties that they experienced. They also talked about the reason they had created that little flower was because it shows that even if people see that I'm someone who is not useful, I need to do something in the future that I can show people. They should stop despising people from the bush, because we are able to live normally like other people. We can even do things better than other people. So this participant expressed hope in their situation and kind of explained some of their experiences. So the researchers used both the mask, the product of the art, and also the explanations that went along with it as the data, which is kind of interesting. And then on top of that, they also used drawings. After they had done the masks, they used drawings for some participants who preferred to engage in the drawings instead of the mask making. And they used those as well in the interviews with the children. So they used a combination, and they, they wanted to learn about the children's experiences in a way that would be safe. So now we're going to look at a method that would include both writing and a combination of visuals. So it can include diaries and journals, scrapbooking and memos, creative writing such as letters and poetry, graffiti walls, flip charts and pens and post-its. So different types of writing activities where they can also incorporate visuals, or using posters to prompt different responses. So the researchers may provide these posters and have the participants talk about them, or they may have the participants engaging in making the posters, for an example. The diaries and journals have been more of a common one, especially around coronavirus. So an example of this would be a project that had children create a journal about their daily experiences during COVID-19 when it first started. And this project had children record what they were doing, and they could use visuals, and they could include also written text. And then they would look at the journals with the children and have the children talk about them. In some of these methods, you can even use them online. So there's different resources, such as something called Book Creator, and you can go online and create a book online, and then you can have the children create the books and they put them in the library, and then you're able to see it virtually. So during a time when you can't actually physically see the children, you can see it online. So there's different ways that you can record diaries and journals, which has been a popular method I've seen in many articles. So then you can also use different types of things, as we talked about, like scrapbooking. So you can have children taking their own pictures and then making them into a scrapbook and including text within them. And this can all be used as the data collection method as well. Okay, and then we have film or digital based methods, which include photography, creating videos, use of information and technology, social media, and mobile applications. So we see photography in Dylan Yamada Rice's article, when she has the children take pictures of visual text that they found interesting and engaged with within their environments. And then she actually takes those photographs and of the still shots, and she had the children talk about them. And then she also creates stop motion animation videos with those photographs. So that's an example of how photography may be used in research. And then another way is with videos. So some researchers use film as the main method, and so they can have participants creating documentaries which look at people's stories or people's experiences, and they create a film to illustrate their experiences. An example of this was a project with youth in Ghana and Tanzania who created videos about their experiences with teen pregnancy and how they dealt with it. And then they actually used these videos to educate other adults who weren't aware of this within the educators that worked with them and other people who were around them. So it can be used in many different ways. And then we also have more innovative and newer techniques that are used, such as mobile apps. So Dylan Yamada Rice actually does some work with this, and she actually uses apps as a way to inform children about different things and then get their ideas about these apps. So one of the examples of this was she had children who were going to experience MRIs, and there was an app created that kind of explained to them what happens, and it had visuals and showed them images, and it was trying to help prepare children who were going to get an MRI. And then after the children engaged with these apps on their tablets or whatever it was, she talked to them after about it and see if it was a way to prepare them and help them make them more comfortable as they went through this process in the hospital. So with the advancement in technology, there's many different ways that film and digital-based methods can be used. Okay, and then we have performance and arts and music. So some of these methods would include dance, theater, so acting, and then music, and also puppets and storytelling have also been used. So dance has been used as the data collection method where people tell stories through their dance and through their movement, which is becoming more popular. And it's also been used also through the dissemination of the research as well, so telling the story of the actual research project put into a dance production. We also see theater being used, and this is sometimes used with more sensitive topics. I saw an article that looked at veterans' experiences in the war, and so the veterans acted out traumatic experiences that they had, and that was used as the data collection method. So instead of telling a story verbally, they used acting to tell the story, and they reacted the scenes or the traumatic event that happened in their life, and that was the form of the data collection. We see music, using music in different ways, playing instruments, singing, using rap. In one project, I saw youth from a low-income neighborhood sharing their experiences about living within that neighborhood using rap. And so instead of telling a story or answering questions in an interview, they created raps and performed this way of sharing their experiences. And then we have puppets and storytelling. So this method has also been used with young children, and using puppets to have them tell stories or share their experiences in engaging with puppets. So there's many different ways the performance arts and music can be used, and I think it's actually becoming more popular. So all of these arts-based methods that we have mentioned don't have to be used exclusively alone. Sometimes they're actually combined with traditional methods. So an example of this would be photo elicitation, which was something I used in my research work when I looked at children's perspectives of their outdoor play space. So they took photographs of the outdoor play space, and then the pictures that they took were used in the interview to elicit conversations. So they would show me a picture that they took, and then they would describe to me why they took that picture or why that part of the play space was important to them. So using photo elicitation can be helpful because it can help children actually recall certain events and help them focus the conversation about what they want to talk about rather than just putting them on the spot. I think it's important also to use interviews with photos because it also gives an opportunity to gain more insight into why the children took the photographs. So an example of this was the children were taking photographs of the sky, and I thought it was the cloud formations. However, when one of the children talked to me about their photograph, they told me that it was actually the airplane had crossed and made a formation in the sky, so they weren't actually looking at the clouds, they were looking at the airplane formation, and that was important to them. Another example is they took a photograph of a spot underneath the climber, and they explained to me that they loved this spot because it was a spot where adults couldn't fit. So it also gives you more insight into around why they took those photographs and kind of what it means to them. So you can also do this with drawings. You can take the drawings and include them in the interview and have the children talk about them to elicit conversation. And then we have group artwork. So in focus groups, you could have the participants engaging in artwork, and either, for an example, they could be drawing maps of their neighborhood and they could be doing it together, and they could be discussing certain places. So you can use artwork in different types of interviews or focus groups. And it doesn't have to mean that if they're using photography, it has to be used exclusively alone. However, sometimes it is. So it all depends on how you're using the photographs.